Hello and welcome back to another episode of the TFR podcast. We are back today to preview the Canadian Grand Prix, and we'll do a little bit of a review of the Spanish Grand Prix that happened a couple of weeks ago. But firstly, the kind of big news, if you like, with our channel. You'll be watching this on a different YouTube channel now because unfortunately our previous one did get terminated off YouTube. It was hijacked about a week or two ago, and there was a bunch of inappropriate content that was put out by this hijacker, and it ended up getting suspended and then terminated by YouTube. We have appealed, and unfortunately the appeals have been rejected, but you can still access all the previous podcasts if you wish to do so via Spotify. It obviously won't be video content, but something for any returning listeners to check out is this new YouTube channel, because we need the subscribers. We've got a lot of work to do to build it back up, and it's one of the old guests, let's say, Logan, if you mind me saying, from many podcasts ago. You're back for the first podcast on the new YouTube channel, so welcome, Logan. How are you?
Kidding.
And are you looking forward to this?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Looking forward to it. Trying to take sweatpants off. It's hot in here, but it is. It's a very big shame about the YouTube channel. It just sucks. Not much more to say. But the good news is, if you're someone that's a fan of us and hoping for us to grow, the best time for a channel to grow is in its infancy. So if we can get off to a hot start right away, and with us being more optimal with our setups now than we were years ago, maybe we can get off to even a bigger start and peak where we were, or go over where we were before. It's only up from here. So.
Well, this is the thing. We've been doing this for quite some time now. So those who are followers elsewhere and are coming over to the channel, you'll know the score by now. We'll be doing these podcasts for the remainder of this season and hopefully future seasons to come. And there'll be plenty more content on its way. Right, let's get into this week's episode then. So we're going to start off with some of the talk from the Spanish Grand Prix, because I think there was a few big talking points from that one that we kind of got to cover, really. The race result, obviously, we had Oscar Piastri winning once again this season after maybe a few thoughts of, has Lando Norris managed to rediscover his form? That very quickly got shut down by the championship leader with a commanding drive to win in Barcelona. But it was actually, Logan, almost maybe a certain Max Verstappen that was posing the biggest threat with a very ambitious strategy from himself and Red Bull, going on a bit of a free stopper. It's what we wanted to see. We saw a lot more pit stops in Spain, and it kind of brought the race alive. But the biggest talking point, arguably almost of the season so far, because of how dramatic it was in the final stages of the race, was the crash between Max Verstappen and George Russell.
Wait, he just rammed into me. He did the same. That's a penalty. Charles just rammed into me on the straight.
Copy that, Max. Max, can you let Russell through, please?
No!
Let Russell through.
No. What the fuck?
My advice is to let him through.
Wait, he just rammed me off the road.
But that's the rules.
Oh, and as he tried to let him through!
That's the rules we have to play with. It's a shame, but that's the rules. Max, Reupload, you've been given a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision, I believe, at turn 5, which drops you to P10 at the moment.
Yeah.
A bit of context behind this. There was a late safety car for a DNF at Kimi Antonelli. Red Bull pulled the car in, and unfortunately for them, because of this bold strategy they were on, they had ran out of soft and medium tyres that would have been competitive for the end of the race. Some people may have thought they could have stayed out. We'll get into that kind of argument shortly. But Verstappen came in for hard tyres, didn't have the grip, had a big mistake on the restart, which allowed Leclerc to attack him. Bit of contact between them, then a bit of contact with Russell and Verstappen into the first corner, and then the big moment. Verstappen was told to let Russell through a couple of laps later, and then the question is, did he deliberately drive into George Russell at turn 5? What did you make of it, Logan?
No, it was just a mess from beginning to end. Red Bull made a bad call telling him to let George back through. He didn't have to. I think it's obviously wrong what Max did, but I think the big issue here still is F1's rules and the way they interpret wheel-to-wheel racing. You know, they are under this rule that it's like if you beat them to the apex, it's yours. You know, they exist on the outside, forget them. You know, and I think what Max was going for was an exaggeration of that. He was mad about how the incident happened between him and George, and he was almost trying to return the favor in an exaggerative manner, trying to use the rule book to his advantage. Hey, if I beat him to the apex, it doesn't matter if he's there on the outside. He obviously went over the line with it, but like I said, I think the big issue, like I'm not taking anything away from Max doing something wrong, he did. But the biggest issue, like I said, I still believe is the way we steward racecraft. This whole you beat someone to the apex, you can just ignore their existence on the outside is a garbage rule. Racing's a non-contact sport for safety reasons, obviously. And the fact that you can ever put yourself into a position where you can just not care that someone's alongside you on a racetrack is just absurd to me. And yeah, if it wasn't for that, and on top of that wasn't for Red Bull's bad decision, they all just culminated and Max boiled over. And it was just really crappy to see because as a racing purist, I don't like to see things come down to crappy rules and bad decisions and drivers blowing up. You know, it's just the whole thing was just a mess. And what I'm concerned about is if this doesn't change anything, what's it going to take for something to change?
Well, this is the thing. A lot of this all stems right the way back from last season and your races at COTA and Mexico. And it really was probably that Mexico race where the FIA really kind of hit Verstappen with two big penalties, two 10-second penalties for trying this thing, like you're saying there, Logan, of interpreting the rules of if my car is ahead of the other car at the apex of the corner, that it's my corner and I can do anything to that car on the outside. This technically is the case now with the rule book, where the fine lines, if you like, of the actual ruling is that yes, if you are ahead at the apex of the corner and the corner is you're on that inside line, then you can do whatever you want. And I think it has just opened a tin of worms with a lot of this, like what we had at Saudi Arabia, where there was a lot of controversy over that penalty, because the argument was he pushed off the track, was he gaining advantage, and then we had a similar thing at Miami, and then we've had another thing here. But the question is with this, Logan, we obviously don't want to see drivers driving into one another on the track because it is supposed to be a non-contact sport. But was this, specifically that from Verstappen of he was trying to interpret the rules, or was he trying to drive into George Russell? What do you think the thinking was there?
I think you're just trying to interpret the rules and take advantage of it. I mean, how many times does it look like someone's just going to drive into someone, the other guy just has to dodge them? Just this time, Russell wasn't anticipating it, and I think it was a combination of Max even just went in deeper than he wanted to, and it's just because you can tell by the way he drove. It's not that he wasn't turning his wheel; it's that he was trying to beat him. It looked like they were playing a game of race to the apex.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still his fault. It was still a crappy thing, and he boiled over. But the two things I'll say is, like I said, it's the rules are the issue because without those rules, you don't have people doing stuff like this. And number two is no one's perfect in F1. You can look at every driver and see things they've done that are like, ooh, I don't like that. But I will say that I think in terms of the long term of the season, for someone to be in a car that's not the best on the grid and still win, you kind of got to have this mindset that Verstappen has. He is there to win and nothing else. And like I said, I'm not justifying it at all. I think it's really crappy, but what I will say, it's like you can see, it's like this guy has the mindset of a champion. And I think someone like George Russell has it too. I see it in them. And I'm just hoping that in the future something about this can change and we can see just the racing be done in an actual racing fashion, not just a game of playing these crappy rules and just pushing each other off the track every time someone goes wheel to wheel, or driving off the track every time someone comes close to you. It just looks silly, and it is silly. It's not racing. I don't even know what it is. It's like a game of get to a point first and then go away, on purpose.
Yeah.
It's just weird looking. Like, look at even like Saudi Arabia. It's everyone dive in as fast as you can and then, get out of there. It's like a teacher when you're at recess claps their hands and everyone scatters, or like tries to get to the first. It's just so stupid looking.
I think that's
And I don't know how else to describe it. It's just dumb looking. It's just it doesn't make
It gets
any
a bit
sense.
silly. Yeah, it's just a bit too much over regulation with some of it, and has came from the drivers as well, so they are to partly blame on this because they've requested these rules, and then now they themselves can't seem to, race properly even with these rules. So it's kind of like I feel some of it needs to go back to the drawing board again, and they stamp down some clear, defined rules, but stuff that's not silly. This feels a little bit ridiculous. It's not actual proper racing. Where, like you say, it's this dash to the apex, and then whatever happens after that, it doesn't really matter. And I think, like, when the actual incident itself happened, my first reaction was I thought Max had deliberately drove into him, which I still probably think there's a little bit involved in that. But I think then now when you think a bit more about, how that is, and probably the thinking behind Max there of just backing off at that point to then be able to send it back up the inside, and the frustration that's added all in it. I don't think it's the same as Schumacher and Villeneuve in '97 and things like that, where that's literally trying to DNF someone, or take them out of the race. It's not like he's straight lined George and drove into the side of the Mercedes. It was just a bang of wheels. We've seen Vettel do this at Baku in 2017 with Hamilton. I don't think Vettel was intentionally trying to take Hamilton out of the race. It's just a bit of road rage and heat of the moment stuff. Which the other question with this, Logan, is was this on Red Bull with a lot of all of this rage from Verstappen? Because should they have even given that place back?
No, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have gave the place back, and why the hell did they put them on hard tires?
Well, I think they had no other tires left, but I don't think they should have pitted, to be honest, Logan.
Softs are better. And they've seen that with the data. It seems to happen so often in F1 these days, where they'll do something. It's like, 10 laps to go and we're pitting. Let's go to hards. What? And the driver's like, wow, these tires suck. Like, yeah, go figure. They're the hards. You've been on the mediums and softs all weekend. Go to softs. Oh, they've been.
Well,
who cares? 2-lap softs versus hards. What's faster? I don't know. It's just, as someone that plays the game, it's ridiculous. Obviously, real life's different, but where have we had a case in real life that you would rather have fresh hards versus 1-lap softs or 2-lap? It's just. The whole thing was seen out, but yeah, it boils down to why would they tell him to give that position up? Everyone knew he wouldn't have to give that position up. No one thought he had to, and they are already irritating him. So yeah, there's just multiple bad decisions by Red Bull irritated Verstappen. He still did what he did, and it's on him. But yeah, they did a lot to piss him off that race.
I think that's the thing, and in fairness, Logan, I hear what you're saying about they should have took fresh softs, I don't think they actually had any more fresh soft. So they should have just stayed. They were already on soft tires. They should have just stayed on those, even though they were like, I think they were 7 or 8 laps old. But even if they were like pretty worn at the end, at least fight it out. Surely they would rather see an aggressive and annoyed Max that he's having to hold off the McLarens behind and so on and so on, than like a Max that's got no chance, of challenging the McLarens, and all he is going to go backwards on a set of hard tires. Do you agree with that? Do you think maybe they could have just stayed out, took the track position, and then tried that way?
Yeah, literally anything other than put them on pit and go to. What I was thinking was pit and go to like a quali used set, because there would have to be a used set
But
somewhere, right?
they'd use them because of this free stock, because of the allocation, and because they'd already made those. They'd already used two, which they had for quali, and then this last set was the last kind of fresh set that they'd already started this final stint on. So like the two they'd already used were like finito. They were completely, like. um, but yes, I think the end of the day, a lot of it was very heated, and it was just a complete botch job from Red Bull from start to finish, really, because it just felt like they were throwing away, so much there. And in the end, Max ended up 10th, I believe, Logan, with that penalty. I mean, points just in the bin, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just a waste. Bad
And
weekend.
And also, I just think as well for the championship, with the way the McLaren's been, there was talk going into this race, Logan, that obviously the flexi wings, that was going to somehow kind of nerf the McLaren a little bit and bring Red Bull a little bit into play. And that hasn't happened, and you'd have to say McLaren are probably going to look like they are just a dominant team for the rest of the season. I don't think anyone's going to be able to catch them. I mean, do you see that being the case, that this is just going to need a miracle now from Verstappen to actually challenge those two?
Yeah, pretty much. And also, if the title fight remains close between the two McLaren drivers and they can't just play the team game like Mercedes used to against like a Vettel or Verstappen, so maybe he could be able to take advantage of those two cars actually battling each other a little bit, or them making a mistake or him having miracle drives, or maybe even just some minor improvements that help the drivability of that Red Bull a little bit, because we see how much he struggles with even setting the car up in practice and how on edge it is. Any little thing can make a big difference. How many times in F1 do we hear of big upgrade packages doing nothing and the tiniest little changes making the world of a difference? McLaren's faster, they're more stable, and they're better on their tires. They're just unstoppable in terms of race trim right now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Max may be able to pull that from, the gods, if you like, at Suzuka or Saudi, but over a race distance, it needs just a kind of sensational drive, really, to beat the McLarens. On certain circuits, I don't even think it's possible. Look at that Miami race where Max, got ahead of the McLarens, but he was just eventually defenseless, even though he was trying all he could. The McLarens, like you say, Logan, I think a lot of this is the tyre management. That is the Formula One that we have nowadays, where that is a huge part of your race pace, and what wins races is if you can look after the tires and keep them in the right window. A word on the McLaren rivalry so far. What do you think is going to happen between Norris and Piastri? Do you see Norris getting back at Piastri, or is this a one way road at the minute?
I see it as a back and forth game. I was thinking there after the last couple races that maybe it started out because every year is a different car, and different drivers adjust better to different cars. We see it all the time. I think the best example of that is a Ricardo. With a car he's comfortable with, he's a god. If he's not, then he's just another person. And off the start of the season, it seemed like Piastri was definitely the step ahead with getting comfortable with the car quickly and getting it set up quickly in practice sessions. And then his consistency was better because of that, both in qualifying sessions. Well, the qualifying sessions kind of just turned into the race results with the race pace being so equal. And I was thinking after the last couple race weekends, like, all right, Lando's getting more comfortable with the car and how to set it up, like Piastri, and that's allowing him to not have these kind of mistake-ridden qualifying laps that have been the difference maker so far. So I thought his game was becoming more solid to compete with or be just a tiny bit better than Piastri, like we've seen over the last couple of seasons. They've always been very close, with Norris just slightly ahead, right? That little bit more experience. But it seems as though I was wrong, and that just was just recency bias, and that's not the case, Either one can be better on any given day, and it's quite exciting to see. It kind of reminds me of 2016, who's going to be better this race? Who knows? And I hope it remains a close title fight, because that's the best chance for someone else getting involved. If one of these two drivers over the next quarter of a season just runs away with it, then they're going to play the team game in the second half, and no one's going to have a chance if there's only one car competing against two cars. We've seen it time and time again, 2017, 2018, heck, even 2019 and 2020 to an extent on specific races. But if they have to fight with each other, then it just turns into a straight three-car race, and the fact that two are on the same team kind of ends up being nullified because of that.
Yeah, we've had a couple of times where the two drivers have had an actual on-track battle, but we've not had too much in the way of those kind of races, considering how close they've been in terms of pace this season and how close the championship is. So we're waiting for that big moment, and I think so too are McLaren. They're playing it very kind of safe at the minute. They're just saying that, well, we're just letting them race, and we've got our papaya rules and all that stuff. But it's going to happen at some point, isn't it, Logan? There's going to be a tangle eventually if they keep on blocking out the front rows and they're with each other at, the same parts of the track. We're going to have our crash at some point, which I'm not advocating for anyone to crash, but I'm all here for the drama. I want a bit of a scrap here. I'll do anything for another Rosberg Hamilton battle for the championship. So we'll see. We'll see how that one unfolds, and obviously this race this weekend at Canada will be the next part of that story this season. I think the last word I want to have on Spain is actually the remarkable, I'm going to say remarkable because it was, result for Nico Hulkenberg. A P5, yes, a P5 in a Sauber, for crying out loud. I mean, granted, he did have fresh, soft tyres for that safety car restart, which was very useful for him, but taking everything away, what a drive, Logan. And again, Hulkenberg shows that he is a top driver.
It's a shame that he's never gotten a shot on a top team. It's been like this for over a decade at this point. Most underrated driver, it seems, in the history of the sport, almost, you could say. And he passed, was it Hamilton and a Ferrari? Wow. What a race.
I know.
Big chunk of points for them as well. And wow. I just wish he would get a shot. I know the risk he's taking. He's like, he didn't think Haas was going to go anywhere big, so he thought maybe with Audi taking over, something will really change come that time. The German driver on the German team, maybe a little bit, but I'd be lying if I said I have my hopes up too high. This team has changed hands so many times and changed names so many times in the last 10 years, and nothing's happened. So they're going to have to prove to me otherwise. But I hope something happens because, man, this guy really deserves a shot. Has he not even had a podium yet?
No, never.
That's egregious for how good he is. I'll say, straight up, if everyone was in equal cars.
Oh, he would have had, he would have had a podium by now.
Equal cars, he'd have wins by now, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, the worst one.
He might even be. I don't know if I quite put him top 5. Let me think.
No, let's
Hey, hold on.
steady now.
Verstappen, everyone else, maybe He might be top 5.
Nah, come on. Top 10. I'll give you that. Top 10.
5. The more I think about it, the more I'm thinking he's top 5. Like in no particular order. Obviously Verstappen, Russell. I'd put Leclerc there. Alonso maybe still. maybe. Hulk.
Really? You put Hulkenberg ahead of Norris, Piastri, and
Piastri, maybe. He's at least like 5th through 8th, somewhere in there.
he's in my top 10. I'd say if I was to say mine, we've got Verstappen, and this is no particular order, just putting that out there. I'm not putting my neck on the line. Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, so that's 5. I think then, again, no particular order. We've then got Hamilton and Alonso probably I still have ahead of Hulkenberg just. And then I'd actually probably say Pierre Gasly. So he's probably ninth best. I'm probably missing Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. I probably would actually have them on a par. I think they're both very good. So he's in that mix for me. Top 5, you're being very kind to him, Logan. I mean, did he slip you some money or something before that? Because that is very kind. But I hear what you're saying. But it was a great drive. And I think the Sauber, it was interesting what they were saying after the race. They benefited from this flexi wing rule change. There wasn't too much made of it in the end because it didn't really affect much at the top, but it has affected Sauber, and that's why they actually had such a good race because they had better pace at Spain, that's for sure. But the actual car was so much more balanced, and they've really been losing out quite a bit from that key part of this regulation. So Sauber could be one to watch. You know, they've got good lineup in Hulkenberg and Bortoletto, and I'm not suddenly saying that they're going to get P5 every other race, but they could definitely start to get some more points because I tell you what, Logan, Sauber aren't bottom of the constructors anymore. It's actually Alpine. I mean, how about that? Alpine, bottom of the constructors championship, with the driver changes they've had. You know, Gasly being a pretty decent driver as the number 1. I mean, what do you think about that battle at the bottom half of the kind of constructors? Because you've got, you know, Haas are quite far up the order with Williams, but then you've got your Aston Martin, and they've had a bad season so far. Who do you think has actually been, I'll put that question to you, who's been the worst so far this season?
That's tough. Like, we're talking about team, right? So I can't just say Lance Stroll.
No, yeah. Team as a whole, who would you say, you know what, they've been the worst lot?
I can't, maybe Alpine, because we really look at that second seat and it has been a letdown so far as a team. But it's hard to tell because I think right now F1 is in a tricky spot for because we've had different eras of F1. And we're in an era where 10 drivers score. Okay. Well, what do we have up front? A clear 4 top teams. That doesn't leave a lot of room for error for other people to score points. You know what I mean? It kind of reminds me of, what was that, like 2022, where it was like, all right, you got your Red Bulls, your Mercedes, your Ferraris, and what, you know, like your Alpine were scoring top 10 every race. It was like, okay, cool. Oh, and then Alonso, because Stroll existed. So it's like, all right, cool. Everyone's racing for 1 point, you know. Feels like that's kind of what's going on right now, give or take.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really going to come down to these outlier races. Because we see races where it's like, ooh, Haas looks like crap again, or, oh, Sauber's being Sauber again. And it's like, ooh, Alpine's awful now. You know, it kind of switches around, which I think is good to see. You know, we don't have a clear, yep, they're garbage. You know, everyone's kind of switching around. And like I said, I think the outlier races like this are really going to determine, because while everyone's scrapping and be like, oh, yeah, good weekend, we got 2 points, let's go. Then out of nowhere, a team scores 10. Like, well, crap, you know?
Yeah. That Australia race at the start of the season has skewed a lot of this because there was such a wacky kind of set of results. They had like Stroll, I think he got 4th or 5th or something from that race. So he's just been bumped up the driver standings all season. Which, I get it, things like this, it does happen. You know, we do get wet, kind of crazy races. But because that was the first race of the season, it gave such a false narrative. It's like Haas. Haas were terrible at Australia. And they rocked up in China. and Ollie Behrman and Ocon both in the points. So it's quite good though. I quite like it like that, Logan. I don't know about you, but I like that unpredictability, and you don't want, like you say, the top 10 just locked in every single week. And even a team like Williams, Logan, this weekend at Canada, track they've done well at before. You think Alex Albon, he's had his rare points at this track in the past. What do you rate their chances this weekend? Do you think they can maybe spring a surprise?
It's so hard to tell. I mean, I hate giving non-answers, but it's just too tough to tell. And practice isn't really telling us much of anything so far. The only thing practice has told me so far is whether it's people are running very little wing to take advantage of straight line, or their brake balances are too far to the rear to try to make sure they're carrying a lot of speed and being able to rotate into the corners. Everyone's just losing the rear. It seems like right now, still getting a feel for their setups. If I think about it, I feel like every team has had a big moment like that, where their cars aren't dialed in yet. And you got times that are kind of jumped all over, so people are clearly doing different things right now. But I feel like that's interesting because even in years past, even when teams were trying different stuff, like think of I remember 2019 pretty vividly when they started posting on YouTube the highlights of every practice. It was like, oh yeah, teams are just messing around. Well, it's Hamilton from Bottas, and a second to everyone else. That were the Ferraris, and then another second to everyone else, which are the Red Bulls. And then the rest of the grid does, in fact, exist with the Williams 4 seconds behind the field. It's like it was still consistent. But the field's so close now that when people run different programs, it's just like you can literally have
Really?
P11 in P3 and then gets pole. It's just you can't really tell too much. But it makes it interesting.
It
We don't
makes it
know.
interesting, yeah.
We don't
So
know. I'll be watching.
it exactly, and it can be quite frustrating, I find, because we've seen Williams do so well in practice so many times this season, and it comes to the damn qualifying or the damn race, and then they're not there, and it's like I want to see a Williams on the front row or something bonkers like that. Just give me one of these practice session results as the qualifying or the race or something. I'll take it because in terms of practice sessions, you would it generally gives you nothing this season so far. Because speaking of which, FP1, Max Verstappen topped that for the first time this season. I couldn't believe that when I saw that stat that Max has not topped a single practice session all season. And yeah, Verstappen doing that. Russell top of FP2. No McLarens at the top of the timings out of either session. So we could have quite a tasty qualifying tomorrow, Logan. Let's get into our predictions then. Who is going to be your pole position prediction for the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix?
Like a bit of drama, don't you? Verstappen on pole with a godlike lap and on a track that's very tough to get right. Tricky chicanes that you're taking with low downforce, with big sausage curbs that can unsettle the car very easily, and grass right off on the runoff. Canada's a very tricky track. I think Verstappen's going to pull out a godlike lap and claim a pole position with no McLarens in the top three.
Ooh, just to throw that in there. Well done. Now that is, I'm not sure which of those two was the biggest surprise. Ooh, I can see it. I can see a Verstappen pole, but just to be different, I am actually going to say I think George Russell will be on pole position in Canada. I think he's going to make it 2 years in a row on pole at Montreal. And yeah, I don't know. I think that Mercedes looks quite dialed in at this track. And yeah, I think he could. I think it'll be very close, to be honest with you, Logan. I know it's a short lap, but it could be a very, very tight session tomorrow. So I'm going to go with George Russell. What is your podium from third to first? What is that looking like?
Oh, podium. Well, I just want to say I had George getting second in qualifying. I'm
Oh,
not
did you?
decided on third, but I was having Verstappen, then Russell, maybe Antonelli. The Mercedes has been good here for a couple years. Maybe Leclerc sneaks in. I think that the McLaren's going to push too hard, maybe make a little mistake. Big brain prediction. We'll see. Ooh, I think that if the McLarens mess up qualifying or if the Mercedes can compete, that can hold up the McLarens enough that Verstappen will be able to manage the race and win. I think that's what will happen. And then I think maybe you'll get Piastri second and Russell will get third.
So that was just say that one more time, but from third, second, first.
Oh, from third, second, first. Piastri. No, I messed up. Oh, Russell, Piastri, Verstappen.
So Russell third, Piastri second, and Verstappen first. Interesting.
That is an interesting race.
Well, that would be quite the story if we get that kind of race. No Norris on the podium, out of curiosity.
No, I think I gave Norris the nod one time in my life last week, and this Piastri wins. And I felt as dumb as everyone else does probably every time they say things Norris is good in the wet.
Yeah. Let's not. I knew that was coming at some point. But who knows if it does rain this weekend? We could see Norris do quite well actually. But we'll see.
If Norris ain't top 5 in quali or the race.
Disagree. For those who are unaware, this is a running joke. Well, not a running joke because we're deadly serious about this. Logan believes Norris is not very good in the wet conditions, and I do believe he's quite good. Remember what race he won this season? In the wet conditions of Australia.
And he still made a big mistake that almost cost him.
Anyways, my top 3 is I'm going with. I think Russell will end up third in the race. I don't think he'll hold on to the pole. I'm then saying Piastri second. And then I think Max is going to win the race. I think Max is going to be able to, pull something out the bag at a driver's circuit. And, take a very important win, I think, in terms of this season, because I agree, Logan. I don't think Norris will be on the podium. I just think he's not quite dialed in so far this weekend. But I'll happily be wrong, though, for the sake of the championship, and we'll see. Neither of us have put Ferraris on the podium. Why are we thinking that, Logan?
You said this is a driver's track? So that rules out Hamilton.
Ouch.
But cars does still matter. And Ferraris have been kind of underwhelming. Not terrible, but underwhelming compared to what we were hoping they would be.
Yeah,
and
I do think
that. It's just that, like, if people are struggling with the rear, like, let's say that happens all weekend long. Who's the best at managing a rear loose car? Verstappen, and it's not close, right? All right, so he wins. And then from there, it's like the better car. So the McLarens and the Mercedes have been good here the last few years. So that kind of leaves Ferrari in a bad spot based on the pattern we see. Not just lately, but also specifically at Canada. So not saying it can't happen, just I go off of recency bias and what I've seen, I'm welcome to be wrong. I would like Ferrari rock up in Canada and avenge Vettel's what should have been victory in 2019.
No, that's a story I would like to subscribe to. I'd quite like to see that happen. I actually saw that race on the Sky F1 channel the other day, the highlights of it, and it still annoys me even now how ridiculous that penalty was. So yes, from a non-biased, neutral point of view, that would be quite nice if Ferrari could somehow get their redemption after that disgraceful decision all those years ago. I can't believe how many years ago that was now. That is 6 years ago, that infamous race. I've got Luke's predictions here as well. He did send them, so he's got a real wild card in here. He's got Verstappen on pole. He's then got Albon in third.
Let's go.
let's say, is the big wild card. And then he's got a McLaren 1-2 of Norris in second and Piastri first. So
All right. That's why I like that guy. He's got
he says
Piastri, Norris, and a Williams. I'm turning into a Williams fanboy. I want to see them come back to the top. Imagine Williams getting a podium this year on pace. Not like some crap where like the crash out. Maybe like one person makes a mistake, and is out. But like on pace, they're top 4, top 5. They get them on a podium for real. They're gonna go bonkers. The celebration's gonna be so good. That's just gonna be a feel good moment.
Oh, well, they would thoroughly deserve it, that is for sure. And who knows, maybe Luke could be right and he sees something with this weekend's race and Williams could pull off a shock podium. That would be quite the story. We're going to find out later on this weekend because there is so much motorsport on. We are obviously the F1 Republic, so we do focus on F1. There is also the Le Mans 24 hours on this weekend. There's many former F1 drivers in that race. We may be doing a little live stream watch along of that on tomorrow evening. Can't confirm that, but that might be something to look out for on the YouTube channel as well. Thank you for joining me on this week's podcast, Logan. Been a pleasure as always. And if you have enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a like on YouTube and subscribe to the brand new channel. If you're listening on your audio platform of choice, make sure you give us a follow. And we will be back next week to review the Canadian Grand Prix and then look ahead to the Austrian Grand Prix, I believe, that is after this one. And we will see you in the next one.